All right, so I might as well can do some more computer work. It's cold out. Thank you. That's cool with me. Video game stuff. That's all right. Anything around the house I can do, or cook more. I don't know. It seems like I have food for now, but gonna be inspired if you need to cook. I don't mind. Rice, cans of vegetables. See, just some vegetable dish would be cool. But I'm pretty good with food. You need more food. Peanut butter sandwiches. Okay, maybe some more vegetables would be good in the crock pot, and just have another vegetable dish, something healthy too. Just really strictly some vegetables though, and a light sauce if anything. Anyway, I was thinking about Metroid again, and then Tourian, the NES level, where very rarely emulate it because I don't like to emulate because I love the feel of the control. I would always say there's a certain way it clicks on the SNES over using the SNES controller, and that's specifically with Super Metroid comes to mind. Even growing up with my friends, if there is I am 40 years old now, and hopefully more of a progress to this, and having an even more so of a future in Christ with a beautiful woman at my side, and to be accepted by her family in these regards, or even whatever degree our family, right? That's even better, really. What has become our family now, our union, where hopefully you would never want to lose certain people, specifically mom, dad, grandma, and about you, blah, blah, blah. So our family, who really, mattered in that situation, that was family, right? Blah, blah, blah. But Tourian is on the NES as I emulated maybe 10 years ago. Dad is gone now, right? So I kept losing, dying. We're on an emulator. I remember even making the video on YouTube over and over and over again for the Metroid Nintendo Entertainment System, Metroid, the original. Tourian, specifically the room right before Mother Brain. It actually starts locking up. Does it do that on the NES version as well? It kind of starts freezing too. Did they? I would imagine they implemented that on purpose, or was it a kind of a bug too, or a little bit of both? Where the SNES version does not have that. I could check, but is it identical? That room. And then the other question to the NES version without the freezing, which is why they did it twice, which is such a wild room, a wild name, just a wild game. One of the, of course, Super Metroid, maybe, yeah, that's still one of the greatest games of all time. Of course, it's up there. Yeah, it's up there, man. It's just good, Where the NES version is not as good as Super Metroid. However, Tourian, which again, the names of the levels, how they stuck back then for me, where with Dread they start falling off with these kind of, these names that, yeah, sci-fi sort of names. But Tourian, it's just like it was this deep name. I really like that a lot. I also picked up on how cool the Samus sprite is on NES now, right? As I watched the video on YouTube. Meanwhile, as a kid when I got there, I was like, what's the big deal, This sprite looks so good, and it changes the look of other moves. The screw attack looks different, And you can see the arm cannon more. Yeah, and you can play the whole game again as her, Andrew. Isn't that awesome? No, not as a kid. No, I didn't see it really the big deal. Now that I think about it, because the graphics were so good for their brain at that time, for the people at that time, perhaps, or the art style, they were like, no, I gotta play through it again. Yeah, wow, it's so man, imagine, yeah, it's fun, it's fun, it's fun. I get that. I imagine that was the idea, right? Just because they look different for a while, and they were having so much fun with that version of the game. Where I would still argue that Super Metroid is that game, that the run through NES. I mean, I wonder what they would say now is nowhere near as on point as Super Metroid is, which is once again. And then you have the arm cannon swap system there, which then the Nintendo knows it, right? They know it. We don't want to mess with that. That's Gunpei Yokoi's work. So I always would hopefully salute him, freedom and peace, and be able to talk about him a lot. I know the mysterious case there. I know this beautiful, healthy, good-looking man he was forming into, which got very strange along the way. Anyway, so the point of this video, I made it really long. I'm sorry. And I think if I'm allowed to shout out some of the YouTubers that inspire me around my age as well. Happy Console Gamer clearly comes to mind here. And as always, Hack Man. Um, if I may, without there being a problem, even RGT comes to mind here. They would, because they would know, right? They would probably, you would assume they would probably know about yeah. And you're a big gamer. Is Torian, the whole point is right here, around 5, right? 500. Is Torian, pound for pound, one of the, or if probably the most hardest segment in the history of a video game. In regards to me on an emulator, as what it was like 30, 25, maybe 30 years old, let's say at that point, dying point time after time after time again, where I was still motivated to get to the mother brain, right? It's like, is it that on point that just that segment on the NES? Was I doing it with no damage that I kept dying, right? Or I don't even remember death, or was I doing it with full health? That's the interesting thing with Tourian there at that point. You start losing your health. You have to go back and get your health back. And if you mess up, you got to go, but you got to regain your health again. You have to find a quicker way to farm. It was, which is the run, right? Kind of back then. That's kind of like the grind or the XP thing today. I remember, you get XP to keep going. That's the grind. Now there must be a save point that brings you right to that point, perhaps with full health, a password, right? They might have that, which those are really weird how those work too. Anyway, a lot in this video, but that may be the hardest, most makes sense level design in the history of gaming. Maybe that I could come across, and is there a science behind it? And Mike Tyson also comes to mind, Punch Out, which is more reflex based. But is there like a clever trick to Torian with the rinkas that I'm missing? You're gonna say immediately the ice beam, but it's beyond that, right? I think I even went at it with full health till it gets to a point I'm freezing the game on the emulator, and I once again I don't like using emulators. I owned the game so many times I must have just wanted to try something at that point. I'm very against emulation of video games because I feel like the artist deserves it, and you blow the experience for yourself. Nothing against people that might not be able to afford too much. Yeah, I don't want to get into that too much. I really can't afford it. I want to try the game out. Sega Saturn Symphony of the Night comes to mind. It's like you would hope the companies cater to those people. Well, want to play your game, man. Rather than, of course, let me just, steal the game. There's a degree on that, in my opinion. I love your games. I can't afford them. I have this bad home life. It's a little bit on pirating too. But is Torian the hardest? Yeah, I could cut that really short if someone would like that. I mean, but I might as well do that too.